On this episode of Faking It, I sit down with filmmaker, writer, director, web series Trailblazer, and creator of the popular web series Out with Dad, Jason Lever. There's a lot of great stories in this episode, guys, that fit perfectly with our theme of getting through life, experience by experience, and faking it till you make it. So here we go. Okay, so I'm sitting here with a good old friend of mine, Jason Lever.
Hello.
And we're going to chat a little bit about trailblazing in a new medium for digital media and kinds of the ins and outs and career and all that fun stuff, and actually doing something that's very different than the 9-to-5, which is a big theme amongst a lot of us artists who also have a lot of business sort of orientation that they are into. So yeah, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm quite honored.
Oh, you should be.
I am.
It's so big and everybody knows it.
Yes. Well, that may come.
I'm more honored. I think
yes.
I'm more honored in this situation. But yeah, so why don't we just start off with you telling us a little background about yourself?
Sure. So I'm, I guess I'm a filmmaker is kind of how I still describe myself. And I didn't know that I was a filmmaker as a kid, but I was, because I'd be like, when I play with Lego, which I did a lot, I would always be very concerned about like story structure and acts and everything. Like as I'm like looking back at what I would do.
Really?
Well, yeah.
Were you,
like
I'd be storyboarding technically?
No. It wasn't that I was storyboarding. It's just more like, like I'd be playing with Lego and they'd be getting this like moment of crisis where it's like, what if the bad guys do whatever? It was all space Lego, right? So it'd be like the enemies would be coming, and then my parents would yell like dinner in 5 minutes. Like, oh, okay, that means I gotta like wrap things up or bring it to a cliffhanger before dinner. And so I would start wrapping things up, or at least to a certain point, and then it'd be like, all right, next time on Legoland. And then I would like do this whole thing, but it'll be, I sort of like do like the imagination of my credits of it, and like it was being very filmic. And then I would like go upstairs, I'd have dinner and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, okay, well maybe I can go back downstairs, I'd play Lego, and it's like previously on, and like
so you'd continue.
I would sometimes, well, not only that, I would sometimes reenact bits, because it's like that's what you do when you watch movies and TV, and
So were you a very like were you a kid who spent a lot of time on your own? Or was that something, or did you?
I guess I did. I mean, I had lots of friends, and I can remember nights where we'd be playing hide and go seek. We had epic hide and go seek games in my neighborhood, as like
awesome.
4 properties worth, and we would play tree tag after school. Like there was these 3 crabapple trees on our school property. We weren't allowed to be doing this, but we would climb, and
Rebels.
and they were close enough that you could actually like leap from tree to tree. So
cool.
it was like grounder tag, where you weren't allowed to touch the ground. But we were doing this in a tree, and it was like fast, and so it was pretty dangerous. But then when it comes to like alone time, like there was nothing I would love more than just playing Lego on my own. Like when someone would say, "Hey, let's play Lego together," I'm like, oh, they don't know all the rules, the physics of Lego. And
true director here.
Well, yeah, and well, that's just it. So like the more I think about it, the more I realize, wow, I really am like a filmmaker.
Yeah.
To the point that like I would, when spaceships would fly around, like I would usually have one eye closed because it more closely resembled the lens. I didn't know that that's what I was doing, but like, I would be like, you're like by my face. And
so were you into different were you somebody who watched a lot of like films?
I guess
like,
I did. Yeah, like I did watch a lot, but then I was also really afraid of a lot too, right? Like I can still remember like the Horta creature in Star Trek like terrified me. And yet I loved Star Trek because I loved special effects. Like I remember seeing Close Encounters of the Third Kind at a very young age, and I was really awestruck by that. Like, and that was kind of my earliest memory of a lens flare too. Like there's a lot of lens flares in that. Cool. So like that was something very significant to me. It was I thought of it as a very beautiful thing. And it's funny how J.J. Abrams is chastised for his making a big thing out of lens flares. I'm like, I've been doing that in my imagination.
Like, I totally get it.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. So we, so like I cared a lot about filmmaking, but it wasn't until like high school that it dawned on me, oh, this is like a career. Like this is actually something you don't just dream about, but it is something you could actually do.
It, yeah.
So I was also very passionate about education and teaching and so forth. So I was also torn, like, maybe I should go to teachers college, or do I go to film school? I just didn't know what the right course of action is, because I know how like insanely impossible, or rather improbable, it is to make it in this business.
Did you know it then? Were you doing that kind of research back
Well,
then? Or was
I think that's just a thing that you just know, you know. I mean, there are
pretty common knowledge, I guess you're right.
Yeah, and there's plenty of people that ignore that knowledge, you know. It's like, oh, but I'm the exception. But I felt very realistic
logical.
about it. Well, I've always been very logical. I mean, you know, I knew I had to wrap up my Lego adventure before dinner, you know. But so we would, so I was very torn by this, and I can remember like standing in the hallway at school, holding like in one hand my application form for like the colleges, and then the application form for universities, because you know it's the two different ones in Ontario, right?
That, yeah.
And I'm like, I just, you know, and I remember this one of my guidance counselors just sort of passed by me. She's like, "What's going on, Jason?" I'm like, "Teachers college or film school? Like, I don't know." And then she just said, "Don't be stupid, go to film school."
Whoa,
I'm like,
your teacher?
I remember thinking, aren't guidance counselors supposed to guide us, not tell us what to do? Like,
yeah, that's a bit.
And I was just, so she saw the perplexed face. I'm like, huh? And she's like, Jason, you're always going to be a teacher.
Oh.
Just go to film school, become a filmmaker. You're still always going to be
Very
teaching.
true.
You're that kind of person. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So I threw a teacher's college application form, went to film school, and before I graduated, I was teaching, you know.
Yeah.
Because I was, in fact, the university hired me to teach the professors how to use a brand new thing called nonlinear editing, because they never. Well, a lot of our teachers, you know, we were learning. So I was at Ryerson. This is like 1997 is when I began.
Okay.
And so we're still cutting on moviolas and flatbeds. So we're shooting on 16 millimeter film. We're cutting 16 millimeter film. And for those of you listening who don't know what I mean by cutting, we're literally with scissors cutting
film.
and taping.
Yeah.
And now I was ahead of the game, because like I did know a lot about video and video editing, so I was doing tape to tape a lot through high school.
Okay.
And then I got sort of my first like corporate video gig, and so like I needed the facilities to edit that at home. So I got my high 8mm camera, and I got a high 8mm deck.
Wow.
But the way video and audio is recorded on high 8mm tape, you can't like do an insert edit.
Okay.
Because the audio is interlaced with video.
Right.
So if you do a video insert, it'll wipe your audio as well. So I'm like, this is no good.
Right.
And so I'm returning the deck to VizTech saying, I can't use this,
paying
my 10% restocking fee. The guy said, well, what about editing on a computer? Like, I'm like, that's impossible. Like, you know, I can't afford that. And he's like, no, you'd be surprised. So I started looking into it, and I discovered like with this video card and with Adobe Premiere 4.0.
Wow.
I was set up, and like, you know, a relatively inexpensive computer.
So that's another way you were trailblazing right there.
Well, yeah, because I knew, you know, I was intimidated, of course, but I was like, I got to learn a whole way to edit. But like I did, and you know, there's been so many times in my life where I've been like, that is a whole skill set I just don't know. Maybe I shouldn't bother trying. I'm not gonna know unless I try.
Hesitation, fear, the
little
typical.
bit, but fortunately, most often I overcome that very quickly. Like, I sort of like logic myself into
That's
it.
why you're successful.
Maybe so. So I logic myself into it and be like, okay, well then let's just cut. You know, let's just do this. And because I have to get. Well, it's also fear too. Like I had to get this thing edited. I committed to this corporate video thing, and there you go. I had non-linear editing. And so when I started at film school, it was still film, and then they got in Apple Macintoshes. And with a brand new software called Final Cut. I don't even know if it had Pro yet in the name. But anyways, version 1.0.
Wow.
And they were like, you know, can you teach this to us? And I said, well, can you give me access to it so I can quickly learn it, and then I'll teach it. So I quickly learned it. I mean, by this point, like, they're all the same.
Yeah, they're very,
way,
very
right?
similar. Yeah.
Yeah. What I later learned too, like the dudes that made Premiere were actually poached by Apple to make Final Cut, you know,
of course,
you know, which is hilarious that Adobe then poached them back to make Premiere Pro. So,
what goes around?
Yeah, exactly. So I learned Premiere, Final Cut, which was simple enough to learn, and then they literally hired me to teach the professors how to use it, and a lot of it too is teaching them how to use a computer. So
yeah, of course it would, because they themselves would be filmmakers, and they would have only been cutting on.
They were cutting them, you know, and you know, people, you know, this is the 90s still, like not everyone had a computer yet, you know,
No.
like, so like for some, it was not unusual for a person to just simply not know how to use a computer.
Wow. So were you even out of school? You were still in school and they were hired by your university?
Yes. Yeah. I hadn't graduated yet. So it was like awesome. I was
That
very,
is awesome.
very honored, you know,
Yeah.
and, so, you know, after that, you know, I started working at Rogers, and there's where I learned how to use Avid. And so I kind of used the three big ones, Premiere, Final Cut, and Avid. And I will still say that Premiere is my favorite.
Yeah.
Like it's, you know, it still remains to be. And, but yeah, and, you know, and Rogers is a great learning experience because then I learned like what it's like to work in
Broadcast.
Well,
Is
it
it-
was
was
less
it-
broadcast and more about the corporate environment, because like this was an in-house production, and that's where it was like their in-house edit suite, and we basically did like a lot of the corporate videos that like they were shown internally, so not so much that was broadcast, though we were cutting like the pay-per-view trailers and stuff like that, so there was stuff that did get broadcast, but by and large it was more internal stuff. And I remember Channel 1, well, like they still have Channel 1, but back then it was just a loop reel, so like I would cut that reel, you know, like it was
okay.
just trailers and whatever else, you know. So it was great fun, but I also learned like a lot about like just, you know, business etiquette, like corporate etiquette, like what it's like to work in a cubicle and all that kind of stuff that I never wanted to
Ever do?
ever do. But I'm ever glad I had that experience.
It is
too.
very important. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was John Tory was still working there then. Like he was, you know, his office was actually almost next to mine.
Really?
Yeah. So anyway, so
What was your title there? Like you went right from school right into this?
Yeah. So I was the motion graphics editor. I remember my job interview, I thought was like the worst job interview ever because, so I ended up becoming a TA at Ryerson for the night school program for cinematography. And, you know, I wasn't a cinematographer yet, but they, you know, the teacher just needed someone who was, you know, he said, he recognized me from like the day class saying like, you seem very good at being able to explain and articulate things. Also, I'm really old and I can hardly lift these cameras, and you can lift them. Because he's like 90 years old, this guy, right?
He's a companion
Torben
for the...
Yonke, ACS. One of the few remaining people alive in this today with a Technicolor license still, with the 3-strip.
Very cool,
so like this, I learned so much from this guy, including how to sail. He taught me sailing during the summer. So I loved this guy. And he hired me to be his TA for the night school program. And in that class was Irene Craig, who is working at Rogers. She was like the day editor, and she's like, we have a new position. Do you want it? I'm like, sure, I guess I'll, you know, come in for an interview. And the interview was like, do you know how to do motion graphics? I said, no, but I could learn, you know. And they're like, do you know how to use After Effects? I'm like, no, but I could learn. And like, great. Well, what about editing? I was like, well, I got Premiere and Final Cut. And like, oh, well, we use Avid. I'm like, I can learn. Yeah. And it's just like every single thing. It was like, well, you can use Photoshop, right? I'm like, I use Corel Photo Paint, you know. It's like, but I could learn, you know. So it's like, so it was a lot of like, you know. So I left the interview.
Well, you were
thing.
willing.
I just felt like I had wasted their time.
Yeah.
Like I felt bad that I wasted their time because I was so underqualified for this job. And then the next day they called and said, when can you start? I'm like, are you sure?
Did you get the right person?
And they're like, no, we just, you know, you said you could learn and we absolutely believe you. I'm like, oh, okay. It's like, you seem confident. I'm like, no, I actually can learn this. Like, I know.
No
I
problem.
Can.
Yeah.
So
they probably just, you know, got the confidence from you. Yeah.
Exactly.
And knew that, yeah.
You know, and so they, you know, I said, well, I can start in classes end, you know, in 2 weeks from now. So I can start then. She said, well, take a week off. And so we'll start in 3 weeks. I'm like, deal. And so that was that. And I learned After Effects, and I, you know, which is, you know, changed my life. I totally love that program.
Yeah, I need to learn that.
It's so much fun. Yeah. And so then, you know, and it was while I was at Rogers, like, you know, I was still doing my own corporate video stuff on the side, and I was still, you know, I was doing all that stuff, and I was doing corporate videos internally for them, but also, you know, the pay-per-view stuff. And I was enjoying it, and I was learning a lot, and you know that's the most important thing is, you know, how much are you going to be
continuously learning.
Yeah, and you know, I guess like my guidance teacher said, you know, and teaching, you know, so like they were learning from me and I was learning from them, and it was just, you know, it was great. But you know, I was kind of feeling like a bit creatively stifled. Like I was just you know, like, is this, you know, like I'm not like
corporate environments do that to people.
Yeah,
definitely.
I'm not a filmmaker, and even when I was sort of toying with quitting there. I'm not sure if I got my timeline right, but it was near my end of my tenure there. It was like 3 years I was there, kind of thing. And I was just like, you know, I got to do something. Like, you know, I'd been doing short films and stuff like that on my side. We did some like 24-hour, 40-hour challenges, which was super fun. And you know, and having lots of success with that, and even like we did like a few of the 1 minute film festivals, which I love those as well. And but all along I was just like, you know, there was all these other great projects that my friends and I would discuss making, and then they would just fall flat because like a corporate video would come up or a thing would come up with them and it would just fall flat. And I was like, I guess maybe I have to accept that I'm not a director, movie maker. I'm a corporate video guy that has a hobby.
You were
like,
kind of struggling with that?
Well, yeah, and I just like, but like I was like, could I be happy with this? Yeah, I could be happy with this. Like I was totally lying to myself. And through a whole confluence of events, of dreams and imaginations, I came up with this idea for Out with Dad.
Right.
A girl coming out to her dad, and well, actually, at the time, it wasn't about a girl coming out to her dad. It was about a girl who is out with her dad. Hence the title, Out with Dad. And so I started researching, and I was a little bit nervous about. I was just nervous about the subject matter because I'm a straight dude who isn't even a dad at the time. And, I was like, am I appropriating the story? Like, is it even proper for me to do this? But
representation issues.
Yeah. And I was very sensitive to that. But like, but as I was doing my research, I realized there was so little out there for a person, that this audience, that this show would cater to. And certainly for parents that this show might cater to, that I was like, screw it. Somebody has to do this. And I've got this idea that I think is I really believe, I thought it was a really cute idea. It'd be fun, but it could be serious, but it could be stupid. And like, I really believed in the idea. I'm like, all right, this is not like one of those other, ideas where it's just like, the corporate video gets in the way. Like this one's different. Like I really felt like I have to get this made. And
did you know you wanted to make it a series at that point, or was it more of like a film that you thought of?
No, that actually, I came to conclusion of series very quickly. Like the story goes, I was sitting on a subway heading to a corporate video shoot. It was after I'd quit Rogers, I think, but they were still hiring me for like this and that, and so I was actually going to a corporate video shoot for them. And so I had all my gear all around me on the subway, and probably everyone's angry at me because I'm taking up so much space, which they should have been angry at for. And but then I just the idea occurred to me. I was started like brainstorming ideas, and I just like this, like I got to make this. But like right away, I was like, it feels serial, so therefore it's not a film. Right. And like, all right, well then that leaves obviously television is the only other option, right? And like, but how do I pitch? Like I guess like. I could figure out how to pitch, but who would I pitch it to? Like, what doors do you knock on? Like, do I go to the CBC and say, hello, I have an idea. Who can I talk to at the reception? Like I literally didn't know because I was not in that world, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was very intimidated by it. I almost I almost logicked myself out of it, because like, and then even to the point where it's like, let's just say I was successful at talking to the right person. They say, green light, Mr. You're fresh out of film school guy. Even if they said yes to Out with Dad, it wouldn't be my show anymore, right? Like I had some very, like I have some very specific ideas and things I wanted to say with it, things I wanted to do with it, the ways I wanted to do it, and so like I can't. I kind of don't want to give this to anyone. I don't want to pitch this. I'd already talked myself out of it by this point.
You want to keep it as your own. And
well, yeah, because that's what I'd always done anyway. Like every short film I ever made was my own. And even like the ones where I was like co-directing it with friends, like I still felt ownership of it, as much as they did. So it's like,
you truly wanted your own idea.
I did. I was
like,
like, well,
come through fruition.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, how can you do that? Like, could I just make it and then like, what, just, I don't know, where do you put it? I'm like, well, and then I had heard of Felicia Day's The Guild. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's it. Like a web series. It's basically a bunch of short films that are related and you throw them online. I mean, that's what I'm already doing with my unrelated short films I'm throwing online.
Yeah.
Of course, by online, I mean putting it on my website that's a downloadable Windows Media video file.
Right.
I didn't know. I wasn't on YouTube yet. But I was like, fuck, I could totally, I could do this. Like, this doesn't seem like a stretch. Like, I didn't know a single person that had done it. Like, really, at that point, The Guild was the only one I had ever heard of.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about the history of that.
Yeah, so like, it's basic by and large, no one had been doing it yet, and certainly nobody that I knew of locally. I mean, I would later learn I was wrong, but I didn't know of anyone. So I was just like, screw it. I have friends. They want to make stuff. I can find actors. Like that isn't that hard. Like you put the word out there and you'll find the right people. And so that was that. So I just started writing it. And I might add, I thought, because I then thought I sucked at writing, because I literally have troubles with writing. Like it's not dyslexia, but I have a learning disability. Reading and writing is very challenging for me. And so I was like, well, I'll have to find a good writer, you know?
Oh, okay.
And so I thought, well, I'll just write a couple like scenes to get the idea so I can hand it off to a real writer.
Okay.
And as I was writing, all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, I got about like 60 odd pages. Like it just kind of happened.
Yeah,
like,
you can't stop
cow.
it sometimes when it's a project like that. It just comes out and you're
exactly.
like,
It just comes out. And like these were scenes in no order at all. So I started like organizing them into like, okay, well, this would have to happen before that, and this would be after.
You started doing the Lego on it.
I Legoed it. That's
You
right.
Legoed it.
I just Legoed it, and there were holes, so I started like filling them in with scenes, and I didn't feel like there was an arc there yet, and of course I'd heard of the Joseph Campbell's hero's journey thing,
Of course.
so I literally Googled that, and instead of reading the whole book because I'm lazy, I Googled it and found like someone had done like
a little graphic of
yeah,
it.
someone had done like an
times.
HTML table of
Yeah.
the hero's journey in one column, and the next column it was Luke Skywalker's journey, and the next column it was Neo from Matrix.
That's great
journey.
though, because it really just puts it into a.
That's right.
Yeah, you can actually access it and go, okay, I know these stories, and that's how
that's
it works.
right. So
Perfect.
I copied this into Excel,
Good.
and then
You
I started
altered it.
pasting into this spreadsheet like all the scenes I had written from Out with Dad, and I realized like, oh, okay, well that's a missing hole, and then like, oh, they need to meet a goddess figure. Oh, okay, I'll
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh, barrier. Oh, okay. And so I started like, oh, okay, and then I like that's
You
how
taught yourself the structure.
I taught myself the structure. Like that's actually how like the whole storyline from with Vanessa came out of that. It's just like, oh, maybe she's got someone that she's known for a while, and their parents are bigots. Okay, so that's like the what do you call it? The demons, or I don't know. It's like step 4, whatever. I used to have it stuck
Somewhere.
in my
It used to
office
be in
here
your
that we're
office.
recording it. Anyway, so I was like, okay, well, and so like I sort of like just whipped together this whole new character. So that was like pretty crazy. And then presto changeo, I had an outline, but an outline that was already almost all written. So then I wrote more.
Don't need a writer now.
Well, yeah.
Did you have an editor? Like, were you working with somebody, or was this all just sort of an insular? You're in your office.
No,
like...
so it wasn't so insular. Like a long time it was, and then once I finally felt like I had more or less of a structure, and by this point too, I should say, like I had written what is now seasons 2 and 3, and that's when I came up with the idea of like, oh well, we need these bigots and so forth for the story. So it's like that's when sort of season 1 came way later. So which is also kind of cool because I was like working towards something. So season 1 was the last thing written, and obviously the first thing shot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. Like I think the very first scene that I wrote was the actual coming out, which was then going to be the last scene of season 1, but then that got bumped to the first episode of season 2, right?
Oh, okay.
And but then like Dad coming out to his parents as a parent of a gay child, that ended up being in the last episode of season 3. Like it was like the second scene I ever wrote was
Right.
like 4 years later.
So it's just like all over, just sort of like a flowing of just an idea.
It's just like, here are scenes I like that I want to write, and
Right.
like I still have those scenes that are saved there, and I'm like, here in season 4, I'm like, oh, I can finally use that, like, and but I digress. Where are we? So
Yeah. So were you working with
working with
anybody?
people.
Or?
So a buddy of mine, he started a writers group, and it was writers group for short stories. And I said, I'd love to come, but I'm not a short story writer, but I got these scripts. Do you think that'd be okay? And he's like, sure. So it was like, I don't know, like half a dozen of us, and we would go to his place, and we would all sort of like read the stories, and he had very structured rules about like how you carry out a writers group. And I later actually asked him to write the rules, and I posted on Out with Dad's
cool.
the Making Out blog, like
right.
the rules of running a writers group, because I so believe in this. Like some of the basic rules are, like, let me see if I can remember some of them, but like the one thing is like, you, the writer, you're not allowed to speak. And so like people will sort of critique it, but you're not allowed to defend it. And you're not even allowed to ask questions. Like you just like what, and it's only one person is like kind of passing the conch shell, like only one person allowed to speak at a time. So you go around and everyone say like, oh, this didn't make sense, or like, I don't know why Rose would say that, like da 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 da. You go through and all these things, and
You had a focus group, basically, is kind of what you're working with.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Like it is kind of focus groupy, but I think the most important part is that like I wasn't allowed to defend it, because his argument is that like if I say like, oh, she said this because she meant that, then everyone would go like, oh, okay. And then,
But if you had to explain it, then obviously it might not translate.
well, right. That means there's a problem in the writing. That means like you've got to change
Fix
it differently.
something, yeah.
And like,
Because when someone's reading it, it's not going to be like an ellipsis and then Jason pops in and is able to explain. So,
well, but then, also like if you dismiss it, then like the next person in line that gets to talk about it, they might say, I didn't have a problem with that. And then the next person might say, I didn't have a problem. So then you might realize like, only one person thought that was a problem, so then maybe that means I'm challenging the audience, and maybe it should stay that way. Like, right. So like, there's reasons why you shouldn't.
Indications of that, yeah.
Right, and so that was really informative, and there's a whole bunch of other rules. And like I said, maybe we'll add the if you've got script notes on this, follow that link. It's very interesting, and he's a great writer himself.
We'll put it in the show notes for everybody to try to take a look at. Yeah. But I'm curious though, when you actually. You had decided to leave Rogers. So you said you were you had been struggling with the idea of, am I, just this person working in a corporate field, or am I this? So what actually, just before you left, what actually made you leave?
I guess it was three things. One was, doing the corporate video work on my own, like independent, was actually becoming very successful, and it was almost like the Rogers stuff that wasn't as well paying was getting in the way. So that was reason one. But the fact that it's a steady paying gig was motivation to stay. Number two, I was just becoming, just the atmosphere wasn't what it used to be. And three, they started enforcing the dress code, which meant I had to start wearing pants to work. I'm not even joking. They said you can't wear shorts anymore. I'm like, fuck this.
Because you're a shorts guy all year round.
Wearing shorts, and
you wore shorts to your wedding.
I did, and it's just like, and I can remember the manager, who was like a really sweet guy. I can remember it wasn't like his voice, like I knew it was like
coming
his,
from above,
his boss.
Of course.
Yeah, it might have been John Tory. I don't know.
Probably. No, that guy's actually, wearing shorts. I don't like
it. So it's like, no, I don't think he was there anymore at that point. But at any rate, but yeah, I remember him being like, "Oh no, does this mean you like got to go like wardrobe shopping?" Like I could tell he felt like a dick saying this to me, but like he had to say it to me, and I'm like, I
quit.
I only have so basically I went home, thought about it for the weekend, and showed up on Monday with a letter of resignation.
So it was really the shorts thing then.
It was the straw that broke the camel's back. It really was.
Okay, so you do that. You keep on doing your corporate stuff. You get this idea of Out With That, or whatever it was, called. You're then working with a bunch of writers at this. Now, were you at this time at all thinking about like the web series medium, or like creating that, or was it just like, I'll write it first and then I'll come back to it?
No, I was definitely thinking. So while I was spending just as much time reading and writing, reading about gay and lesbian issues and coming out issues, and for both perspectives of young people and their parents, because that was that is a story that is never told, the
very
parental
rarely,
perspective.
yeah. So you're collecting research.
So I was researching that, but I
was
just as much researching the medium,
or the lack thereof. So where are the spaces?
Yeah.
Where are you kind of looking like?
Well, and how do you build an audience? Like I fortunately, it's like, well, what's the point in making this if no one's going to watch it? And so it's like, I didn't have a dime to make this. Like, so it was a volunteer casting crew and everything. And I was just like, it's like, I knew that I couldn't spend too much on it. So I'm definitely not going to spend money on advertising it like through the traditional means to build an audience, because like, how am I going to make money from the audience? Like if there was a return on investment, which like I didn't know that term then, I didn't know what the ROI would be. And so I just knew that I had to like figure out how to tap into an audience. And fortunately, a lot of it I learned very quickly. Like, so fast forward to now, we've shot the thing.
Okay.
I don't know if there's much to tell there. I mean, like, it's no different than any other indie production. Like, I found my cast.
People assembled.
That's where I met you.
Yeah.
And I
actually, it's not where we met.
No,
we met when I was in high school. But we reconnected over this.
There
was a
correct.
Facebook post that I
That's
saw.
right.
And
but how did we meet then?
We met through Kayla Hutton's brother, Sean.
Sean was my filmmaking partner.
Right.
Yeah.
So when I was getting into filmmaking, Jason actually came to my high school and judged as the coolest, like, oh, I'm from Ryerson University, and
I was
like in film school.
I was the jury for
you were the jury for my high school film project, because it was like,
film
that
festival,
guy's so film festival. That guy's so cool. I asked a friend to bring him in,
Yeah.
we got you all the way up north in my, in the middle of a farmer's field, high school. And Jason came in and did this whole judging process. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
And then later on, we didn't really much keep in touch. And then I saw a Facebook post that was, I have a great idea. This is a fantastic, just something really passionate. And I thought, fuck, I want to get involved.
The dawn of Facebook is around
huge
that
part
time,
of this, I'm
and there's
sure.
a huge part of this. Yeah, I mean that's how I reconnected with so many people. Even people I didn't know that well, like you, right?
Right.
And which is weird to say because like now we're dear friends,
Yeah.
but then we were just like
Very
that person, that
acquaintancy.
kid at a film thing, right? So and I knew I followed you enough along to know that you were now
pursuing the film school
York
stuff.
and so forth.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, let's meet. And I remember our first meeting was just like, what can you do? And you're like, I don't know what I could do for
I'm
you.
like,
And
there's some different things I could do.
yeah, and then somehow or another we settled in our direction.
Yeah,
and so forth,
Jason
right?
just said, well, I need an art director. I said, oh, I could do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And then it just went from there.
And go figure, you're good at it. So,
Thanks. So we just went from there. But like, was there any other like stitches you kind of came across in the writing process? Were you like, oh, firstly, how am I going to take this from a huge idea down to, do I do 6-minute episodes? Like, what's that?
So that was a very, so I mean, there was a lot of like, rules, and I say rules with like italicized with quotation marks, because there's rules about the web, like things like you can't make something that's more than 5 minutes or else people won't press play.
Right.
And the first episode, like, so basically I figured out where the breaking points were so that each episode was basically 3 to 5 pages. And then, so that's one thing. So I did think about that a little bit,
and that was just by you seeing that kind of like, oh, people won't press on this because of attention spans, whatever. Okay,
that
I'm
was
going to go
the belief,
for 3 to, okay.
And now today I know that's absolute rubbish.
Yeah, it is. If people are interested, they'll watch.
Well, and part of it was a technological reason. Like back, there was a time when, when Regan Latimer was starting her web series, B.J. Fletcher Private Eye. Back then the upload limit was 100 megabytes.
Right. So that's going to limit you, of course.
So that is about 4 to 5 minutes. So she literally couldn't make her episodes longer.
Interesting. Maybe that's where that comes from then. And it's not so much that we're all just attentionless idiots.
It's
that
like you can only do 100 megabytes. It's long enough anyway.
Whatever. Yeah.
Right?
You can put out a story like that.
Yeah. I mean, I remember learning like the CD, compact disc, it's 74 minutes long because that's how long Ode to Joy is if you play it properly.
I didn't know that.
And so they were like, well, what longer thing would you want to have on a recording than Ode to Joy? So this compact disc is 74 minutes in length because
you're like
that's
a media
Ode to Joy. Historian. Yeah, but I know this. Yeah, so anyway, somehow or another, all this useless information is not so useless after all, right?
It's just interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, and so we
shot it.
Yeah, so we shot it, and like I did the casting thing, like that was very easy, and I mean, most of the actors I did not know. I mean, I knew Will a little bit from high school, and
Who played the dad,
and I knew Daryl Din from Rogers. I worked with him. He was actually the only character I wrote with an actor in mind. So like he was the only one that I wrote it for him. And so that was awesome that he actually said yes. He's just like, so he was like all over it. So that was awesome. And yeah, so we shot it and it took about a month, but then we decided to do a couple pickups like later, like we shot a few more scenes. Then we premiered the first episode, which was like 6.5 minutes long.
Whoa.
Well, I was terrified because I was like, no one's going to press play. Oh, I'm going to pause that for a moment. Okay. I'm going to rewind a little bit about building an audience.
Okay, good.
So we put out the trailer, and it was the night I was recording a Christmas concert for Drama Way.
Oh.
And
one of my many jobs.
A connection back to Liz here. So I'm standing there recording this thing, and back in those days, whenever a new subscriber subscribed to the Out with Dad channel, I would get an email. And like,
I remember
the whole concert, I was getting subscription. Like I had to like turn my phone off because it was vibrating so much. And like, what's going on? Like, are we going viral?
Has it happened?
So, well, what had happened is a website called onemorelesbian.com found the trailer and they posted it, and all of a sudden people were like, oh, this is happening, and
that wasn't a connection that you had thought or perceived. It was just like serendipitous
so blind luck that and then a few days later someone at afterellen.com reached out to me saying, can we syndicate this show, which I didn't know what that meant.
You were like, Cinda what?
Well, yeah, like I knew that what it means for television, but
broadcasting,
like for web, like how does that apply? But fortunately she explained it right in her introduction email. Like she was just like, you give me the embed codes and I will put it on our site. You still get all your view counts. It just means we'll be showing it to our audience. And I was like, well, I don't see any harm in that. Not thinking that this is the greatest thing that had happened.
Because you really don't know. There's no gauge at this point. Because
that's right.
No one's written a book on this. There aren't any
Correct.
rules. Like you're saying, you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants.
So, I mean, that's why, today when people ask me, like, what are the, what's the most important thing you can do? I was like, reach out to already existing audiences. Because After Ellen and One More Lesbian
have been around. So.
Well, they were already around. So they're, After Ellen's like a pop culture website for lesbians, about lesbian and bisexual women.
Yeah.
And so they, so like I was doing them the favor by giving them content to show, and they were doing me the favor by giving it to their audience. And so I built an audience. So in the early days, like it was more than 40% of our viewership was on their website.
Yeah. They're probably just so stoked to get something that was like different and worthy of like
and of a decent production value too, right?
Absolutely.
They had Anyone But Me that was on there, which I really dug that show.
Was that also that was a web series?
That was a web series.
Yeah, I've never.
So
seen
I discovered I came upon that in my
But
research
Me.
and
US based.
Yeah, it's done in New York, and and it's like a post 9/11 story. So like the dad was one of the first responders.
Oh
and
yes,
now
I've seen the first episode.
Yes, it's really good, and some really talented acting in it, and of course beautiful writing by Tina Cecil Ward, who's goes on to become my friend, and
huge connection. I'd love to. Yeah, we'll get into the community of like what web series is
and
like.
And this is the thing about when Trailblazing, I didn't realize that I would be changing my life for the better in terms of this whole community that I'd become a part of.
Yeah,
I mean, not only were the gay
you were at the center
community,
of, really. I mean, let's be honest.
Well,
the web series
in Toronto, anyway.
Toronto, sorry, yes, of course.
Perhaps, but I mean, I
you wouldn't have had an idea. I mean, your phone's just buzzing. You're going, "What's syndication?"
No, I didn't know.
Obviously.
Yeah, I didn't know. Like nobody really knew, so anyway, so now we get to the point where we are releasing the episode. So I send the embed code to After Ellen and to One More Lesbian. I start and I would start emailing everyone saying, "Here's the code. Like now watch it," and all that kind of stuff. And but I was terrified no one would watch it because, like I said, it was 6.5 minutes long, and I wanted to have like a very elaborate opening credits sequence, so that was like a minute of screen time.
Yeah,
there's about 40 seconds at the end for the end credits. So like a stupidly large proportion of this first episode is credits.
Yeah, you didn't have faith in the fact they'd stick around.
Yeah, well, or even press play. Like I said, it's over 5 minutes, and I was told, and all the first comments were, "Why is it so short?"
Exactly. I remember that.
Why is this only 5 minutes? Everything I watch is an hour long.
Well,
I'm like, hour long? What? And I'm like, oh shit, because episode 2 is only 2 minutes long.
See, that's the thing. It's funny.
I was terrified.
Yeah, because the rule book, the only thing that existed was like a 5-minute gray area. And you're like, I guess I'll do that. And that's the only thing that really was guiding. And you went, okay.
So, I mean, like we had shot, I think we shot 6 episodes, many of which were, except for the first one, it was going to be less than 5 minutes.
Right.
And like, if they think this is too short, they're going to hate episode 2.
Right.
So I end up lumping episode 2 and 3 together.
Yeah.
And then I lumped like the next couple together. So I was like kind of lumping them all together. And the viewing experience of them was way better.
Of course.
Because you really did feel like you're going somewhere. Yeah. You do want more. And so then like the next episode was over, I think, I don't remember offhand, but it's like, anyway, it's more than 5 minutes. And so like, all right, it's longer than episode 1. That's good. And then again, the comments were like, it's too short. And like, well, I don't have enough material to make. And like now I used to have 6 episodes. Now I really have like 4.
Yeah, because you've consolidated.
Yeah. And so like that's when I turned to the cast and crew. I'm like, guys, we got to shoot more. And it was like, I'm in. So we went and shot more.
Because we were all bummed that it was over. It was like finished and we were like, oh yeah.
Like we had the big premiere party and it was just like, okay,
back to it.
We're done, And so we were like, okay, let's shoot more. We got to shoot more. And I remember the other thing that was super cool is like, the response was like, well, I don't like this Vanessa character. Like it's a real bitch. And they didn't like her at all.
They didn't like Vanessa, The lovely Lindsay Middleton.
Yeah. And so I knew, and like Lindsay and I knew why she was unlikable, and but then it occurred to me, so going back to like the lessons I learned from the writers group, like I realized I have a writing problem here. People are asking questions that need to be answered, and I'm not actually going to be answering them until probably season 2.
Right.
If there's a season 2.
If there is, yeah.
So I kind of had to answer the question, why does Rose even love her? So we were like, well, let's just shoot. So we end up shooting that whole dance episode, the party out episode, episode 4, on the hottest day of the year. It's just, like actually like look it up. It's it was the hottest day of the year.
Hottest day recorded
in Toronto. So I was like, bah. So
let's all dance. Yeah.
in a basement with all the windows closed because
the sounds, and you're
because the
recording, and you
sounds,
don't
and
want
there was
the
no air conditioning because it's a century old home. But the neighbors,
no.
they did have air conditioning,
Yeah.
so we had to like cut out their sound, and so anyway, it's hot.
Yeah.
But
But fun at the end. It looks really great.
It's
and
great,
You can understand.
and,
So you had to like jazz up the whole attraction side of why does this person love them? Okay.
And it worked. And then all of a sudden, and, then we finally had everyone like, shipping Rose and Vanessa. And so like mission accomplished, So, so we get it out there and it's done. And, it's, the promise that I had made to the cast and crew is like, I didn't want to do deferred rates because I think deferred payment is BS. And I've since learned that that's actually considered tax fraud.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, well,
because
because if you say to someone, "I'm going to defer your payment," so that means actor is going to
do the work
for deferred, meaning someday if I have the money, then I'll pay you. Well, that actor ought to be claiming that as income on their income taxes. That they're not actually being paid, and because then in the future when I finally do pay you, it would be actually on that tax year.
Oh, but nobody would.
But nobody does that because nobody actually gets paid anyway.
Anyways,
so
with deferred payment,
so you're
it's
asking
like,
people like, could you be in this and also give the government a cut?
Right.
So it's like it's actually technically tax evasion,
right?
At least in Canadian law. So
good thing you didn't do that.
So good thing I didn't do that, and I just thought it was more honest. I'm saying I'm asking you to work for free. I'm asking you to volunteer. And
in good faith,
and with the hope that if this makes money, I will still not pay you.
Yeah.
But I will hire you to make more in the future. Like that was the promise. And so everyone agreed to that. We had so much fun making season 1. We were all like, and it's like, how much money did you make? And it's like, I made, I don't know how much we made, maybe $1,000 from like donations, right? Because we had a little PayPal button.
PayPal, yeah.
Yeah, so we had a little PayPal button, so we made some cash, and there's like we made like 50 cents from YouTube ad revenue or
whatever it was.
I exaggerate a little, but not that little. So we so we had some cash, but it was just enough to basically spend on making a second season. So we all volunteered our time to do it again, and it was great and super fun. It was just as much fun. It was a lot harder to schedule because I didn't want this to cost anyone anything. Yeah,
so you didn't want people to take off work, which was really considerate. And then it's just sort of like, okay, let's do weekends.
So the schedule was a nightmare, but we got through it. And, and I was like saying to everyone, like, let's like, I don't like, it's coming out of my pocket, not your pocket. But like some people were like, no, like I got this, and there'd be times where it's just like, let me fill your tank of gas, and be like, no, it's fine.
It's just a project. Yeah, you just have good faith. Yeah, good faith, and to just know that you're a part of the crew, and I loved being a part of something that was a trailblazing thing that was with fucking fantastic people, and that was what
so
it was.
Much fun,
hanging out with friends, making stuff, and that's it.
And I think that is like a super important piece of the puzzle of being a filmaker.
Yeah,
is like you've got to create an environment in which people can
like to be it.
People like to be there and are encouraged to be it, and like that your passion is infectious,
and yours definitely is. And you nailed that.
Well, and it's just it's not hard. It's because I'm gosh darn passionate, You
can't contain it.
Yeah, and so anyway, so we did so then the idea was like we all then agree like, okay, if we do season 3, we all have to promise ourselves not to do it for free. Like we just can't give in, as no matter how much fun it is, we can't give in. And so that's when like the advent of crowdfunding came along. Right, it was still very new.
So the PayPal button doesn't leave the website, but it's about kind of more of an organized idea of let's raise money.
Fortunately, I had the sense of mind even at the very beginning, because you can't replace videos on YouTube, right? So you can, once it's up, it's up.
And if you take it down, you just literally lose everything. Whatever's connected views wise, but you can't just like no.
Well, and let's say let's say I do decide to change something in the end credits, then After Ellen already has that embedded, the old one. Right. Now someone presses play, it's going to say removed by user, and then they're not going to necessarily know how to watch it, right? So like it's really important that you get it right the first time. So at the end of every episode, before the credits start, I always have a title card that says, please support Ella's Dad. Go to elladad.com/contribute. Like every episode has that. It's the same formatting, same branding, everything, every time, still to this day.
Yep.
And thank goodness I did that, because that page is a page that I can manipulate. So if you can't press the PayPal button, then you can just contribute. There are lots of ways you can contribute. Right. Another way is like just share the show. Put it on your page, Facebook it, whatever, right? So there was always that kind of stuff. But now that we wanted to do a crowdfunding campaign, now Kickstarter still wasn't available in Canada.
No, yes, that
There
was
was
just US.
Indiegogo was an option, but they take a they both take a big
chunk.
cut.
Yeah.
And you know, and also the other thing too is just given my lifestyle, like you can do like 30-day campaigns. I don't think you could do 60.
No, I think it was pretty exclusively 30.
It was just 30 back then. It's like that's a whole month of your life where you've basically got to like, you know, beg and plead.
Hustle, yeah.
And my lifestyle said that I couldn't do that. And so I was like, how can I, in the most Canadian passive way, ask for, you know, people to give?
Fund this, yeah.
And I thought, you know what, let's just be passive about it for as long a period of time as we can. So that means I can't use Indiegogo or Kickstarter. You can get away and do Kickstarter in Canada if you tried, but
yeah, it was a little back channel.
Yeah, you had to do like American accounts.
Yeah,
and blah, blah, blah.
IP addresses.
Lots
and
of
whatever.
stuff. But
yeah.
at any rate, I'm like, screw it. Let's just do it ourselves. Because I mean, like I loved their format. It's like, you know, if you donate
The
this amount,
tiers of
then
all that,
the
yeah.
tiers, the rewards, and all that kind of stuff. And so I was like, well, I know how to make an HTML table. And I know on PayPal you can create buy now buttons. So why not do a buy now button for each tier and put it on a table?
So you created your own.
I created my own. And I'm like, this is great. This is a great workaround. And that meant, you know, there's all these great advantages. Like there were disadvantages in that, like they provide you with analytics data and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
like I'd ask people that run successful campaigns, like, you know, what about the traffic of just like the Kickstarter crowd, that like people that just stumble upon it, like, you know, am I missing out on that crowd? And everyone said, no, all the money is coming from your already built audience.
Exactly, yeah.
So like you're kind of not missing anything by not being on Indiegogo.
Because you might get like a straggler who like stumbles upon your thing, or if they feature it, but most of
It's
the people are like,
super rare. Yeah,
I'm an
yeah.
audience member. I want to see season 3, and that was kind
Yeah.
of the not ultimatum, but sort of like was
Yeah.
the idea of like fund us and help us continue this because
Exactly.
we all want to still make it.
Well, and then there's the other thing too, is like I'm a horrible business person, so I hadn't budgeted yet. Like I
Okay,
didn't
yeah.
really know how much this was going to cost. Like I had a ballpark in mind, but it's like I didn't even want to do that work until I knew.
Was that also though just because things were kind of like going faster than you could, like
Well,
with
things were going
trailblazing
fa-
something? I mean,
Well,
things-
yeah, there was that.
it's like a runaway carriage.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, but also it's like, you know, I hadn't finished writing it yet, so like how can you do a proper budget?
Oh, of course you
And
can't.
I didn't want to do a writing it. I didn't want to put in all that work unless I knew I was going to get paid to do it.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like,
you're at a crossroads.
yeah, so I was like, I have an idea. I figured it'd be roughly a certain amount. But since, you know, if I was doing Kickstarter, I have to put in a finite number. And I wanted to be honest about, like, I wanted to know I was going to spend it, that it wasn't too much or wasn't too little.
Right.
Especially too little. And so that's why instead of doing here's our target goal, I just said, here we're at 0% and here's 100%.
Here's my scale.
And I would just manually myself nudge that along. And then
Yeah.
I was like, well, if I later realize, I need more, then I'll just slow down how much I nudge it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So I wasn't, you know, I was as transparent as I wanted to be, basically.
Well, as you could also be, because if you don't have the content completed, you can't
Yeah.
say, okay, rental of this, rental of that, whatever payment.
Yeah, and we didn't know, you know,
Very
so
hard.
I wanted to at least pay everyone $100 a day, or if it was a half day, we'd do $65, and we determined a half day as being 5 hours, and you know, and you know what, almost every indie web series in Canada follows that exact model now. Like everyone just, it's like
do you
everyone
think
does
that's
that.
just because of what they've heard through the grapevine about what you did, or do you?
I can't say.
You can't say, but
I mean, everyone that I
maybe.
know that's done it said, well, it's because of you, but
Okay.
like I don't know, like
could have just been passed on.
Yeah, I mean, I hear it's happened in Alberta and BC, so I mean, I don't know. But,
Yeah.
but I was very
that's how you
public
guys
about
did
it.
it,
Like, because
yeah.
I'm also, like, on Facebook, I'm very active in the Toronto Web Series Community Facebook page,
That's
which
right,
is,
yeah.
you know, improperly named. You just can't change the name. It's not Toronto anymore. It's Canadian. It's actually very
Canadian.
international, quite frankly.
Yeah.
But certainly got to focus on Canada. And, you know, so, like, I would be always sharing, like, here's what I'm doing. Love your feedback, or here's a suggestion how you might want to do it. So like everyone knew what we were doing, and that was that. And so we went ahead with that. And so plus
The campaign was successful.
the campaign was successful. Well, it was almost successful, actually. So we raised enough money to definitely do a 6-episode season, which would have concluded with a musical, because I really wanted to do that musical. But then I figured that would be the end. I thought, well, maybe that's a good way to end the show, because the other thing too is, by this point I now know I'm going to be a dad. So that was also a part of the, you know, it's like, you know, life
Baby's
is
on the way.
life
Life
is about
is
to
changing.
change, you know. So it's like this, you know, I didn't want to get, you know, I mean, I did get all doom and gloom, but I didn't want to get doom and gloom. I was like, let's not think about the end, but maybe we should just be 6 episodes and that's that. And then, through a lot of talking, I kind of, my wife and I, we came to the conclusion, let's just shoot everything that's written, which was roughly 20 episodes. Let's just shoot it all. And then, so we had enough, it's like we had enough budget to shoot 6 episodes and do post, or shoot 20 odd episodes and then not have enough for post. So we're like, let's just shoot everything and kind of worry about it later in a way. But because of this model I'd created or done for the crowdfunding, it's like, well, we can just carry on after we're done shooting. And then we've got like footage, we can cut trailers, we can do things to really help
got the content going.
Yeah, because like now that they see it, it's like, now you need to help us finish it. And so that's what we did. So we shot it all, ended up being 22 episodes, because that includes Vanessa's story, which was like a spin-off thing that we kind of did in secret, which was like super cool.
Yep.
And that all came out because when I wrote the original material, I hadn't invented Vanessa yet.
Right.
So I wrote seasons 2 and 3 with Claire.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as Vanessa. But now I'm like, how can you have it
How can you
without
not have
Vanessa?
Vanessa? Yeah.
So I'm like, I had to like, well, what's a plausible excuse that she's not in the story anymore? Oh, she ran away from home. Okay, so she ran away from
Which
home.
became a very important,
Yeah.
I think, the messages through Vanessa's story.
Well, and even today we're
unbelievably
continuing. Like just this week,
Yeah,
I
I just
launched
saw
Counseling Vanessa. So now we're dealing with the trauma of sexual abuse and sexual assault and so
yeah,
forth.
so by doing that, kind of going off on that other side, you created a lot of very important messages, and also giving Vanessa her rightful ability to be a part of the series.
Continue in it, and until their storylines reconnect, sort of thing. So we did it, and then we continued the crowdfunding campaign, and what we ended up doing, sort of like just with that thermometer, the 1 to the 100%, which was still just saying 100%.
Whatever that is.
I then started like divvying it up a little bit, being a bit more successful or more specific. It's like, once the meter reaches this line, then you get the first 6 episodes. And once it gets to this line, we'll give you the next 8 episodes and so forth. So that's why it ended up being season 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, which like I kind of regret. I wish I called it like, well, wouldn't it be cooler though if we were saying now season 4, now season 5? Instead I called it 3.3. Like, this would be like,
in hindsight, I guess.
In hindsight, it's like whatever. Like the internet, it doesn't matter. What does a season really mean?
Yeah,
but
you've
like,
hooked
I
your
could be
viewers,
saying where I'm making season 7 right now, depending on how I count it.
Oh,
right?
you're saying like by feeling of like the successfulness, or feeling like the body of work would have been at season 7 instead of 3 point.
Well, because if each season is roughly an hour, then we're at season 7 now.
Yes, true.
And it does, and about each hour of storytelling kind of works as a unit, right? So season 3.1 worked as its own unit, and then season 3.3 and so forth.
Yeah.
So whatever, I digress. But yeah, so anyway, so we got it done, and it took a long time. I mean, like from the time we shot until the time that the last episode was out, it was like almost 2 years.
Yeah.
So like it's a huge journey, and so like it's so crazy. Like we celebrated the premiere on Facebook, it reminded me like, 2 years ago, you launched it like 2 years ago, but it was only like a few months ago, last episode.
Oh, wait,
so
that means it's been 2 years.
Like it took a year to do post, basically, being a dad and an editor, basically, and a lot of content, and a social media person, and all the, plus I'm trying to, I want to do other things. Like I'm not just out with that. Like I was also co-directing Pete Winning and the Pirates. I was directing episodes great web series. Clutch, and there's The Gate, which was a hilarious thing. We shot 30 episodes of a sitcom style web series in a weekend, so that was crazy. So I'm doing as much as I can to get out there, and I continue to do that today.
Yeah. And wanting more projects and everything too.
Well,
to do different things.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of, there you go. So there you go. I think I finished answering your first question, which was, tell me about yourself.
Tell me about yourself, Jason. That's okay. We just rolled with it.
Yeah,
we're just rolling with
that's
it.
the nature of this,
medium. Yeah, totally. So you did mention like a slight regret. I think that's something that I like to touch on with everybody's experiences. Just like, for me, I don't really believe in that statement, like, no regrets, because I don't think that we'd actually really learn if there was just you just blindly completely marched forward and like, oh, I made that mistake, but like, fuck that, I don't care. I mean, it's a little bit, I get it, we want to be comfortable with our choises, but what do you look back on and think like, maybe change or keep, or as a reflection? I
mean, some of them are very simple, like the season thing, like season 2 even could have been 2 and 3,
right?
And then 4, 5, 6.
So just making
that's how I'm coming to 7. Like so there's little things like that. I wished I really sat down and like made myself budget better. You know, like there's a lot of guesswork and just throwing money at problems, and
Right.
that's a big mistake. And I hear that from a lot of other creators. Like that's a regret that they have.
Yep.
So I'm much more careful now. Like, 'cause like now season 4, it's like I know exactly how much money, because I'm not putting a penny myself into it now. So now we have a monthly thing. We're using Patreon to fund
Right.
it.
Yeah.
And that came out of the fact that like I just thought, if the audience wants season 4, I don't want to do another freaking year of begging before the first episode comes out, because then like, you know, the steam's going to disappear. So like, well, how can you do a series where you're releasing right away? And so like we shot the first episode for free. We all volunteered our time for that. But then it was like as our way to say, hey, we're back. And if you want to see more, then become a patron of Out with Dad. So now we've got like 150, 180 patrons of Out with Dad.
Right. For them, funded by them.
Yeah,
basically.
and so every month basically they've pledged
Contribute.
to give X amount. One person is giving $200 a month.
Wow.
Lots of people are giving $1 a month, and it all comes together like where we're able to, you know, pay ourselves very close to the same rates of season 3.
Yeah, and
a little
still,
less, but
still
it's growing.
contribute and
Well, I mean,
the series.
I'm paying people better than minimum wage.
yeah, which is amazing.
Which is amazing. I mean, technically, season 3 wasn't minimum wage because we worked 12 hours.
The way that it shakes out.
12 hours for $100. And in Ontario, that's less than minimum wage. I don't know what it was then, and I'm actually not sure what it is now.
Yeah, I don't know.
But like the budget right now, the way it's working is I'm paying everyone more than $15 an hour, which is
pretty great.
which is what
I
we
think.
want minimum wage to be in Canada. So
That's right, yeah.
So I'm doing better than that, and I'm like not many indie series get to do that. So that is actually perhaps my proudest accomplishment.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
for sure, definitely up there.
yeah. So I don't
But is
know.
there like a lot of things you change? Because it's hard also me asking about a regret situation when you were like carving a path.
Well, and that's
right?
just it. So like
'Cause it's
here's
trial and error.
Well, here's something that I do not regret.
Okay.
Is I'm glad I don't know a lot of what I know now. Because if
Oh.
I'd known everything I know about this business, how it's
Yeah.
done, the you know, even like the political landscape of the entertainment industry in Canada.
Yeah.
If I had known what I know now, I probably just wouldn't have done it.
Because you would have logicked yourself out of it.
Yeah, or been way too intimidated, or both. You know, it's like, you know, it's there's so much to be excited about.
Yes.
But then, you know, there's the time when we submitted Out with Dad to the Genies, which was Genies was television, Genies was movies, Geminis was television, right?
Gemini's is television.
Yeah,
I
so we
believe.
submitted Out with Dad to the Gemini Awards, which was, you know, now merged and become the Canadian Screen Awards, but it was the last Gemini Awards. And they had a category for web series. I don't remember the exact name for it. It wasn't web series. It was like digital, interactive,
Web content of
original,
whatever, yeah.
non-fiction, blah, blah, blah. Or fiction, yes. I'm not non-fiction. There is that category still there. And they, instead of being nominated, they just canceled the category. I'm like, oh, so I'm out $500 because it's super expensive to submit.
That's how much it is to submit?
They've actually lowered it now because they recognize
God, I
that.
mean, do they even, like, for the medium itself, like, that's stupid.
I know. So, well, but now I later learned that now this is a lot of hunch work here, but the fellow submittees to this category were the likes of like the Being Erica blog.
Yeah,
vlog.
like, that's huge.
You know, like, so there's a bunch of Canadian television shows. They were doing web content.
Yeah.
Or trying anyway. And so they were submitting that category. So the jury kind of looked at it saying like, well, this is just an advertisement for a TV show.
Yeah, it's just a massive,
Yeah, so-
money's behind it, and it's not the same thing at
Yeah,
all.
so
How do
they-
you even, you
so
can't
the
even measure
jury,
up to that.
The jury themselves decided.
Oh, they ousted it.
They canceled the category. Now they did refund the money.
Oh, good. I was going to say,
No,
because
they
usually
did.
they don't do that kind of
Well,
stuff.
yeah, because I mean, technically, like,
they
it's actually-
canceled it, so that
it's
makes
in the
sense.
rules where they actually can cancel it and not refund, but they made the exception for us
Oh,
indie
how
folks.
nice.
No, well, yes, but they also realized that they, you know, to their credit, they realized that they didn't know what this medium was, and so like the president of the academy and a bunch of others came to one of our meetups that we were doing to like learn like what the heck
Oh,
are we
good.
doing, and so they came, but it was super eye-opening, not just for them, for us, because like
Oh, why?
well, they were asking questions like, so how do you like get distribution? I'm like, well, in my case, like, I just put it on YouTube. And I think everyone around the table that day was like, it was just YouTube. And they're
Because
like,
that is distribution.
right.
For,
Yeah. And they're like,
That's
so
it.
then how do you, so do you apply for an account? And we're like, no, you just sign up. And we're like,
they didn't know how YouTube worked?
they didn't know what YouTube was. Like I was literally teaching them, well, no, there's a button and you press upload. I'm like, so anyone can do this? I'm like, yes, anyone could, like,
Oh my God, what year was this?
this would have been 2000. um 10
That's
10,
bananas.
11.
5 years. That's bananas.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So like
So really ahead of the curve, and they really did not know
this is
anything.
so this is the thing where, like, you know, it's like this is what a lot of the Canadian film and television industry, like, that's where they still are, right? And I'm learning this more and more, you know, and that's not to disparage, like, I don't want to sound like, you know,
No, like if you have a web series,
it all,
you should
but-
do it.
yeah, but I mean, you know, it's just quite simple. Like going back to my professors that had never touched a computer before. Like, there's still a
Right.
lot of people in the industry that have really not had the need to touch a computer before.
Yep.
So, which is, I mean, that is a bit strange, I think, you know. But at any rate, that is the reality of the situation. So I was, you know, teaching like people twice my age how to press upload, like that there's
what
a button.
this whole thing was
Oh,
about.
it was so amazing. So like,
So they're just uninformed. They really didn't get the whole
no, they were just,
category
so
before
just,
they even put it
just
up.
anyone can press play or can
Yes.
press upload. I'm like,
And
that's
it's
right.
viewers. It's the same thing as your.
Well,
your,
then
you
that
know,
question was like, well, then how does anyone know to
audience
watch it? I'm like, oh, well,
they
and so I started telling
subscribe.
there's,
What subscribe?
oh, yeah, no,
It's like the
there's-
TV guide, but you don't get it in the mail, and you sort of get like updates.
So how, without a TV guide, how do people know to watch it? Like, well, then
Yeah.
you go onto other websites like After Ellen, and
Yeah.
you, like, embed.
RS feeds.
No, none of this. Like, none of this meant anything to
Yeah.
them, right? So it was like, oh, there's a lot to learn. But to their credit, the following year, they that's when they merged
pulled
the
up their
Genies and
bootstraps,
Geminis,
yeah.
and they renamed it the Canadian Screen Awards. And I think I love the name because, and they say it right in the subtitle, like it's film, television, and digital screens. Like they
Right.
get it. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter whether it's the silver screen or the screen that's in your pocket.
Yeah, they need to dust it off a little bit and get
They
it
did,
modernized.
and so I really, you know, my hat is off to them for realizing we're behind the game. Like they're still learning by leaps and bounds, but they're getting it, you know. And I'm pleased to say Out with Dad was nominated in the
Yes.
first Canadian Screen Awards. I still get choked up saying that.
Oh.
But it was like a big,
It's a
that was
big,
huge
big deal.
because like we were up against, you know, like huge productions, and you know, and so like, you know, when they did like the montage of the opening, like I'm seeing a montage of you know, Kate and Lindsay in a montage, like and it cut right next to like a shot of William Shatner for his documentary.
yeah,
and
like
you're
it's not. That's insane. Like yeah.
William Shatner and Kate Conway in the same breath, you know, like,
That's a huge
badass.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah,
huge
so it
moment.
was huge, and you know, and not winning was so not a disappointment, like
Because
it was
you're
just,
there,
like,
you
we were
probably
there.
just
And you know, so I remember, you know, highlight number one was like I saw Rick Mercer was there, right? And was he? No, Martin Short hosted it. But anyway, he was there, and so I went over to him because he had just done his its rant about It Gets Better, and you know, the short version of that rant is, why were you saying it gets better? Like it should just be better now, right? Like he kind of doesn't love he likes the campaign, but doesn't love it because it's not doing what it should do.
right. Yeah.
And so I went over to him and like, dude, I totally love what you're doing. And, you know, and I said whatever I said. And then he said, oh, and what brings you here? I said, oh, well, I'm a nominee. And he goes, and he just said, oh, Out with Dad.
Oh my god.
And I didn't say.
I can't believe you're still alive.
Yeah,
I would
he
have
said
dropped
Out with
dead.
Dad, and like he sort of knew Daryl Din. He's like, oh, Out with Dad, Daryl Din, and I'm like, ah. And then there's more talking. It kind of sounded like,
You're just like,
I absolutely don't remember.
Is this real life?
Yeah, so you know, so he was kind of like congratulating me. And I'm like, I don't even remember why I'm here. So that was pretty crazy. So Rick Mercer is like praising me, or he might have been saying bad things. I don't
Shit.
remember actually.
Doesn't really matter.
But then later, like it was like I remember it was in the coat line, I'm getting my jackets on, and I was saying, you know, just got chatting with some lady, and she said, oh, you know, it hadn't been the televised part. We were like in the earlier thing, so I'd already known that we didn't win. And this lady, oh, what do you hear? I'm the nominee. Oh, we didn't win. She goes, oh, but that's the, you know, don't be disappointed about it. And I'm like, no, it's an honor to be nominated. And then she said, no, it is an honor. So she said, okay, I was on the jury. She said, the jury process is ruthless. Like they think about it. Like you have the top people in the industry in this country
Picking
are
apart.
evaluating and deciding which five.
Right.
It is a huge process to get nominated. To win, that's just people voting. It's a popularity contest. But to be nominated
Is the actual
that's a
thing.
deal. I'm like,
Wow.
I was so glad I met that lady.
Yeah.
And I have no idea who it was.
Reframes it
Yeah.
completely.
And
Which
so,
does make sense, though. Totally
well,
makes
yeah,
sense.
and then actually, and I became a juror later to like when I wasn't, I didn't want to submit 1 year, so I went to just check out what the process is like, and she is right, like it's an amazing process where like a lot of thought, like it's not just like meh, these 5,
Whatevs. Yeah.
like it's a huge deal, so that's pretty badass.
It's an amazing part.
So,
yeah. So definitely you don't regret the fact that you got
No.
there. I mean, all in all, it brought you to that moment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a pretty amazing journey.
Yeah. Oh, it's been the craziest journey ever. And
Yeah.
and so, and the journey is continuing. Like,
Yeah. So how is it continue? Like, tell me
well,
what's up
so
with Jason now.
I have this other project I've been really wanting to do for a long time, and it's a slightly different genre, but a lot of similar themes about with Dad. Like, these themes have become very near and dear and important to me. So I've been wanting to get that off the ground, but it's going to take buckets of money to make it work because it's,
what is this project?
I don't want to talk about. It's too.
Okay.
I can't say now.
Oh, it's a bit too embedded.
But you
in
know
things.
a little bit of it.
Yeah, I do.
Wink,
yeah.
wink, wink.
Wink, wink. Yeah, I know about it. But cool.
So it's a project I want to make, and so some producers got involved, and he had suggested, if you could make this a continuation of Out with Dad, it would probably be an easier sell to get said buckets of money.
Right.
I was like, I don't know if I want to do that and like make this season 4. And he's like, no. I'm saying make this season 5, and you make season 4 to keep the brand alive, and then you can finally get this other thing made. I'm like,
oh,
I don't know if I want to do season 4. Like, I kind of love where I ended it, because I ended season 3 on a terrible cliffhanger, and I love terrible cliffhangers because they're awesome.
It was an intense cliffhanger.
And I love that ending, and so I was like, all right, I do have to keep the brand alive. And I also knew that if I was going to do this story, they would be like 6 years older. So I'm like, all right, well, why don't I do a story where it's like they're 3 years older, and it's kind of like in between, it'll be like the bridge. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, well, if I'm going to do this, how can I do it where I'm not doing a big crowdfunding campaign for it, because I just want to get it made,
right,
so that I can do this other thing that is my real big priority. So we started working on it. So that's when I came to discover Patreon, which is the monthly thing. And so we're like, let's just make episodes monthly.
Yeah.
And so that's what we started doing. And now the funny thing is, the other project I've decided, I've sort of reverted back. It's not Out with Dad anymore. Mm-hmm. But I'm kind of glad I sort of almost got tricked into doing season 4, because I love making it. And now, like, I'm actually telling there's still stories I didn't get to tell. And there were story elements that involve, how much do I want to share? There are story elements that were in the other thing, the quote unquote season 5, mm-hmm, that won't work in the Out with Dad version. So I'm like, well, I've got these great stories written. It's like, well, now I still want to do them. They'll take a lot more budget, but
yes.
I mean, like, I'm still going to do them. So they're like sort of sitting on my desk waiting until, the patron growth is at a certain point where it's like, okay, now I can afford to do that.
Yeah.
And so I'm just baiting the audience along. I'm not baiting them, but like, I have to do the story, it's due diligence, and there's certain steps we got to go through.
Absolutely.
And so,
yeah.
I'm really excited, because I'm still trying to follow the Joseph Campbell model.
Yeah.
Even though I'm doing it month to month.
That hero, month to month hero journey.
Yeah. So, So anyway.
Yeah. So you're still developing those kinds of those projects.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to put myself out there. Like I was realizing a little while ago, like, I'm not getting work, like, even, and the whole corporate video thing is like basically dried up. Like, when the economy tanked, so did that. So I'm like, oh, wow,
no
Out with Dad is my sole income. That's terrifying, because it's not a lot of income, but it's good. It's more than minimum wage, but it's certainly not enough. So I got to get myself out there and doing more directing things. But of course, everyone just thinks I'm so damn busy that no one's asking me to direct. So, and I'm like, okay, well, I got to work on putting myself out there more.
Reframing it. Yeah, it's I understand. It can be hard when people perceive that, okay, yeah, you're really kicking ass at this thing, which you are, but it's also like, yeah, well, in between kicking ass, there's also some time for other things. Can I kick?
Do you have ass days?
Your project's ass. I can kick it, but in a good way. Yeah.
I don't know how that metaphor may have been stretched, but whatever.
So are you still like, is the digital or not digital, but like the web series medium somewhere that you want to always revisit, stay, or do you want to kind of evolve from? Like, what's your...
I think so. That's a great question. It's something that I debate all the time. And, so like I also became a founding member of what is now called the Independent Web Series Creators of Canada. And And it's because I really do believe in this medium. And, so the short answer to your question is yes, I want to stay in this medium. I love this
Right.
medium. Except that I also don't know if this medium is in its final stasis yet. It's still evolving and evolving rapidly. Like this other project I want to do, well, it's called Wander. I won't get into what it's all about, but the Wander it's kind of a web series, but it's kind of not. Like it's more, I guess it's kind of almost more app based.
Hybrids.
Yeah, and so some people might call that transmedia. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but it's something of its own. It's something unique. And not to mention there's also 360 cinema, which I'm super interested in. So that's something I want to talk to Lindsay Middleton about. I'm actually
360 cinema?
yeah, with cameras that shoot in every direction all at one
yes,
time, and
right.
with VR, it was also called VR cinema. So I've got some neat ideas of stories that could be told with that I don't
Right.
think so far it's all just like horror and action that people are doing, and I want to do drama with it. Like I think
Yeah, why the hell not?
yeah, so I've got some ideas there. So like there are the whatever this medium is still evolving,
Yeah.
like I think that there's still film and there's still television. People in the film and television industries are terrified. They're still learning how to press upload.
Clearly.
They're trying to put their understanding of storytelling in this linear fashion that they are so used to. They're trying to impose that on this medium, which is hindering a lot. It's making it more difficult to say to people with money, like, hey, I've got this project I want to do. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't fit in these boxes I'm familiar with.
Yeah, it makes them freaked out a little bit.
Yeah. I remember at a convention when someone said, marketers like, money people, brands, like they want something that's new and innovative, with a proven track record. I love that oxymoron. It's so exactly right.
Yeah,
They want to be the first to do something, but
You have to provide
But it's
the
got to be
proof.
proven, so not first. Like what? Like it's
I'll just get in my time machine and see if it works out.
Yeah.
And then come back with
So
the info.
I think we're at a very interesting time in Canadian industry, like
Media
the
and
screen
all that.
industry.
Yeah.
Like that's, I kind of like calling it that, I
Yeah.
guess. But oh my god, I just realized, of course, with Oculus Rift and everything, maybe screen isn't the right word. Holy
Maybe
cow,
not.
what? So, but I mean, whatever it is, it's picture and sound storytelling at its broadest form,
Mm-hmm.
and I just want to tell good stories, and whether it's television, film, or something yet to be invented, I want to do that.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's very good. Yeah. And you're continuing as well too. I think what another really cool, like not just along with hiring actors, and I'd compare something like, okay, I've cast actors in this film. Web series is so unique in the way of that, like every person mostly that you've cast or had on board had continued on to a different project, had
Yeah.
continued on to producing their own or pitching their own
Yeah.
or writing. Like it's a very interesting place, because I think there's so many opportunities
Yeah.
to be like, hey buds, we can do
Well,
this,
so
crowdfunding, but it's
here's
cool.
the thing, is that what ultimately it's become, I realize, is it is an incubation system web series. Like you're incubating talent, you're incubating ideas. And so there are funding things and grants and all that kind of stuff, but right now, unfortunately, because there's literal check boxes that you have to check in application forms, a lot of what we're doing doesn't apply. And I think that that's a real shame. And this is one of the things, like, I'm going to be writing a letter to the new Heritage Minister. I want lots of people to be writing to the new Heritage Minister, because the Canadian Media Fund, which they do give money to this and that, because they don't have a checkbox for web series or whatever this medium is, they can't fund it. But they think it's a good idea, but they're mandated by the Ministry of Heritage. So it's like, we got to be talking to the powers that
direct-
be to
exactly.
say there's an opportunity for
Like,
incubation.
hi, we're here, yeah.
Because like I've been to a lot of festivals now around the world.
Of course, yeah, you've
know,
gone. It's taken you
To Marseille, to
yeah.
Bilbao, to Los Angeles, and
been
that
to
itself
New
has been to
York,
all
we've
sorts of
been
other
to-
places.
yeah.
So like, and one of the things that I keep noticing is everyone is awestruck by Toronto. They're like,
Really?
well, because Toronto web series creators and series are per capita over, like, how do you say it? We are overrepresented in these festivals. So the Marseille Web Fest that I went to, this was a couple of years ago, 2011, 12, whatever. Yeah, 2012. 2012, I was there. They had 23 official selections that year. 6 of them were Canadian.
Yeah, that's huge.
3 of them were for Toronto. So it's like, and no other country, including the US, had more than two countries,
don't see
right?
that.
More than two series, right?
Yeah, it's always the US is
it's
up
like,
there.
and this happens at every festival. Like Canada is overrepresented,
Wow.
and so it's like, what's going on right here, and so that's why I have such faith in this medium, is because there's so many trailblazers and mavericks and people trying new things. It's like, it's amazing.
It's very exciting. It's always evolving.
So that's right. And so like, I think that Canada is positioned to be like the it place for this medium, whatever that medium is.
Right.
And that's why I want to encourage our ministers and our agencies and so forth to really recognize that something magic is happening here.
The possibility, the opportunities.
CRTC as well, like they need to recognize like there's crazy shit happening here. We're at this precipice where we could set it up. Like, we often talk about Hollywood North, that expression. It's like this could be really it for whatever the next medium is,
Yeah.
LA's got their film, New York's got television, / Vancouver's got television.
Yeah.
Maybe Toronto is this next medium that nobody actually knows what it is yet.
Yeah.
But maybe we'll figure it out for the world, And so, and if not, then at least we're incubating amazing talent.
For sure.
Like you say, like, Lindsay's got her Happy Her web series.
Yeah.
Kate's got Kate Gilmore's a jerk.
Yep.
Jonathan's doing thing after thing after thing.
That's right.
Like everyone's doing creative, amazing things.
Yep.
And we're all learning off of each other, and we're all growing, and we're all, we're creating
helping
content.
one another
Obviously,
too, which is a huge thing. Using people as resources. It's not just like, and not just as a friend, but also as like, you feel comfortable like asking somebody.
Yeah.
And it's one of the few I find artistic mediums right now where like there's probably like normal artistic jealousy, or maybe like, I want what that person has, but there isn't the same. Some artistic mediums, people just get really mean and weird about that kind of stuff.
There's a reason for that, so
but this is not that
so
medium.
like with film and television, like there is, television for sure, there is absolute competition because literally
few spaces. It's
there's yes. So Thursday night at 8, everyone wants Thursday night at 8,
So
and they
they're
have to be
gonna
the top rated show, and so like
cutthroat.
So it's very cutthroat. It's very like, I have to be the best or else I don't work. And, film, maybe it's like tops at box office, whatever it is. Like, there's going to be analogies and all that stuff. But it's cutthroat because of the nature of the medium. Whereas
YouTube,
stuff on the web...
Right, yeah. Anybody can...
infinite.
It's, how many what, like, videos a day get uploaded?
Yeah,
How many, obviously, they're not all worth, like, the...
No,
following that out with
but
that
the
has...
thing
But
is, though,
we can,
because the internet is so vast and because there's so many viewers on YouTube, which is more important than creators.
Yes.
There are more viewers than can be imagined. There are so many people that have such diverse tastes that, when I made it with Dad, there was barely a single lesbian on television.
Right.
There's more now, but at the time there was none.
Very
Certainly
few.
none in a lead role.
No.
And if they were, it was cartoony and like so it was I made something that audience members desperately wanted to watch, even if they didn't know that they were missing out on it. Anyone But Me is coincidentally about a teenage girl and her single dad. They're both. That's exactly what Out with Dad is. Well,
Right.
it's not. They're obviously very, very, very.
But at
different.
the very base, like, fibers.
The base fibers. When you look at the log line, they're basically the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I was always supporting their show through Out with Dad social media, and they reciprocated. And what ended up happening is their audience discovered Out with Dad. My audience discovered Anyone But Me.
Yeah.
And who does that hurt? Neither of us.
No, exactly.
It helps us both because
You're not both on at 8. You're both on whenever the hell anybody
someone
wants to
presses
watch
play.
you.
Exactly. As long as they know about it, and like, and for a viewer to like both shows, even if they don't like them equally, they could maybe like one more than the other.
Sure.
I still got that.
Still got the view.
Still got that view.
Yeah. And the support. That's what that means. The
That's
view is
right.
the support
That's
and
right.
sharing that, oh, my buddy has this, or I believe in this project.
Right. So, I mean, the next time Tina Ward has a new show that comes out that I think the Out with Dad audience would like.
That's what I love about it, though. That's what's so freaking great.
So this is why, and so I think that going back to what you were saying before about it not being cutthroat, it's because the very nature of the medium says, no, you have to be collaborative.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Doesn't give you any other option. Yeah, I think so too. I don't like that. I'd like collaborating more than being like, oh, that person has something, I'm going to go and try to do better than them. I'd be like, hey, you do great things. Let's be a team on this other thing.
Well,
that seems great.
Back to the time that those Academy people came to that meetup and I was teaching them about the upload button. Like one of the other things that they didn't understand is like, well, how come you guys are all helping each other? Like, which is understandable.
I mean, it
from
is
their perspective.
understandable,
Like,
but
they
then
didn't get it. It's just like, but
so then I
it's
get
like,
what you're saying, where you're like, if I knew about that, it's just like,
well,
it's crushing.
That's just it. It is crushing, and you know, and it's so funny because like as I've met more and more people in that, like it's funny because I really don't think they intend to be condescending, but they're always like, Jason, don't change your naive attitude. Like just keep being the way you are. And I actually think they mean it in the most sincere, hopeful, optimistic way. I mean, it sounds like condescending assholes, but whatever. For some reason, I'm not offended when they say it because like they actually are like what they're kind of saying is what we need is more people like you. And it's
That's
like,
right.
well, then let's foster, let's incubate and foster a whole generation to be that. Like, can we not reform? Like, I think that this is an opportunity to reform the entire media industry in Canada.
Definitely.
I mean, I'm speaking super optimistic and perhaps
and
maybe
on a huge
unlikely,
scale, but
but it is that is not outside of the realm of possibility. And you know, so we just got to keep at it and keep that positive attitude. I mean, that's why I started these meetups. I mean, it wasn't just me, it was others, but like, you know, I very specifically put myself in a leadership position within the community because I wanted to set the tone for that community that is positive, encouraging, collaborative. Like, I really want to set that tone.
Yes.
And that tone is super important.
Open. Yeah. And that's just like the tone that you set on your sets.
Yeah,
It really
well,
is. Like, it's
it
the
makes
same
sense.
open, and it's the same enthusiastic and positive. Let's do this. If there's a problem, we can help you. And it's just a great way to collaborate.
When I was at Ryerson, you know, the average, back in my day, like they accepted 60 students into the film program.
Right. Yeah.
And then just by people dropping out, like
You end up graduating with.
Yeah. So it was, you
25.
know, the way it worked is, it would be 60 in the year one, year two would be down to, I think it would go down to, it would go down to 40.
Yeah.
And then
very
down
similar
to 30
to mine
and then
too.
down to 20.
Yeah.
In our year, it went from 60 down to 43, down to 42, and then 42 graduated.
That's great.
Nobody dropped out. And the few people that did drop out, it was for financial reasons only. In fact, the one guy that the 43 down to 42, he actually came back a year later.
So he still got him back.
But, and so it was like, why, it actually caused a lot of problems because they're so used to, their data shows 20 students graduating.
Yeah, it'll get thin
that
out,
means
and then
they had enough equipment for 20 students.
less things to mark, less things to,
So
equipment to divvy up.
I headed up, I didn't head up a committee. I formed a committee that was to allocate all the equipment and divide it amongst everyone because there wasn't enough gear. So we had like a whole system, and because there just wasn't enough gear because
the numbers
it wasn't,
don't do
the infrastructure wasn't there because something
You guys
happened.
are just a random year like that.
Well, and then so we were asking like, why is this so crazy? And like the professors, well, it's usually because everything is so cutthroat and negative and mean and nasty that people are dropping out because of like all the reasons you'd expect.
Yeah.
In addition to financial reasons.
Mm-hmm.
And but this year everyone was so positive and everything, and then it was very, very, very kind of everyone, but they all said, well, actually, Jason, it's because of you. You were so encouraging and positive.
I just got.
It's
got
like
shivers.
Well, because
I believe it.
At when we'd screen a film,
Yeah.
the class, the teachers say, okay, who wants to go first to give feedback? And I would almost always go first, and I'd always say something very positive about it, and that would start a trend. And it was very
seriously, and I can speak from coming from somebody who I also went to film school. Somebody like you, I'm just trying to imagine like taking Jason from what I know about him and everything and putting him into that would have been a completely positive. I didn't maybe have like completely like negative people, but like there was also just a passiveness about like I'm not going to mention anything, but that is negative. It's but
yeah, I mean,
I can imagine it is attributed to you.
Not only was it often, I think they said it was like between 5 to 6 films would be usually in a graduating year, and I think we had, I think it was 16 films or something like that.
Unbelievable.
It was 16 films that in our graduating year, which is crazy. So like usually you'd have a night of screenings. We had to book
two.
we did 3. Oh my God. We booked the Bluer for 3 nights because and it's like, and like the professor was like, what?
Yeah. So you continue, you bring that with you through your life.
And that's the thing. So like I recognize that. And while it's very flattering that it's being attributed to me, I'm like, okay, I'll take it. But now let's apply it, and it's like, oh, so here's a whole industry? Then let's set the tone now, and maybe we'll revolutionize the world. Yes. So fingers crossed it'll be like that. and
it's already starting like that.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah, that's how I feel. That's totally the vibe I get from it.
Yeah.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
No worries.
Yeah, I planned this.
I mean, it was self-serving, of course, because I don't want to work in that industry
No.
that is described
you're
to
doing
me,
it
that
for
I'm
your own-
seeing,
yeah.
like I gotta love what I'm doing.
Yeah,
like,
your experience has to be good, and
Yeah.
you just understood that you're also a big part of that. It's not just okay if nobody decides to do these things, it's not going to get done.
I get, yeah. I don't know. It's
Small.
hard because I recognize it's a big deal, but I also I don't want to be a jerk and take all this credit. But at the same
I
time,
don't think you are. You're just kind of telling us what you were told and everything. So
yes,
I know it's
yes,
awkward.
I don't know. It's awkward. Yeah,
It is
'cause, it's very nice to receive compliments, and but then to tell someone about the compliments I received, I don't know. That's weird.
This is my compliment resume, and
Yes.
it's very vast. And so
There you go. That
should
should be
you
my
should take
Tumblr
it.
right there.
You
My
go.
compliments.
Yeah, compliment resume. But yeah, I just is there anything else that you wanna throw in or add?
I don't know. Because I love the theme of this podcast, faking it, because as soon as you told me what it is, and then I listened to your first one right away, which was awesome.
Thank you.
And I was just like, this, I don't know, I guess this is my chance to compliment you.
Oh, thank you.
Because it's important for people to realize that you kind of don't need to know everything ahead of time.
Yeah, not many people do.
And going back to the theme and title of this podcast, is if I had known all this stuff, I wouldn't have, as we've
Right,
discussed already.
right.
So I decided, screw it, I'm just gonna fake it as I go along.
Yeah.
It's as soon as I saw what your podcast was about, I'm like, well, I
This
hope I can
applies.
get on it, and because that's entirely what my career's been, and I don't say that as it's a bad thing or something to be ashamed of.
No, it's not.
That's what everyone should be doing. It's
Yeah.
just like, don't
great
be,
things come
don't-
out of it.
don't be afraid to-
Clearly, great things come out of it.
yeah. Well, and so often people ask the what's the one piece of advice for someone starting out, making a web series, and usually my sort of my answer, it sort of seems like a cop out of an answer, but it's actually the best piece of advice is get off your couch and make it.
Do something.
Just
Yeah.
do it, and
Just
it's
do it.
okay if you don't know it. And because I remember there's a while ago, I was thinking about writing a blog post about the things I wish I'd known ahead of time. I kind of logicked myself out of writing it, because it's like, if I known all this stuff, people shouldn't read this,
Right.
because
Because
terrifying.
it can also be a dangerous.
Yeah.
Knowing too much information can be a little bit.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. No, seriously, I can say with absolute confidence, I don't think I would have made that show. And this
I'm glad you
conversation would not be
faked it.
having. This
Yeah.
podcast wouldn't exist.
No,
it
wouldn't. It probably wouldn't. You're right.
It's it's all the whole chain of reaction. And if I'd known, what do you mean upload? If I'd known that, I
Yeah.
would have been like,
Nope.
oh my God.
Done.
So
Okay.
yeah. So anyway, so I'm glad that you're making this, and I am going to be listening to more, because
Good, I hope so.
hope to hear from other walks of life, because
Yeah, there's going to be tons of people coming from all different areas.
Good,
Yeah,
good.
yeah. But in all of that too, in terms of my experience with Dad and with working with you and everything, I do want to thank you for faking it, because that directly positively impacted so many people that I talk to on a regular basis. Still very good friends of mine from the set. It came to a perfect time in my film career where I was like,
you
not like
saying
I
that,
told you,
yeah.
I'm not really crazy about fiction stuff, because of what you talked about with the cattiness, the weird shit,
It's
people.
there.
It is there, and people trying to do something out of their means because they think, oh, I'm going to get all this money and then I'm going to do it, but they don't even understand the basic mistakes of you have to make these mistakes of try to do something a little low budget and then see where really you need the money, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I got totally turned off by it, and it was an invigoration from Out With Dad to be like, I like fiction, because people don't have to be assholes.
Well, you logicked yourself out of
did.
it,
I
or
did.
you're on the verge of it anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I did for a couple of years. I did because I thought a documentary, and I'm happy that I discovered what I did with documentary, but I kind of pushed away fiction for those reasons you talked about. And coming to the Out With Dad set, or finding those things, really helped me love what I originally loved, and
Good.
originally why I applied to film school in the first place.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to have come along on the journey of figuring out
I'm glad you're there. It's,
web series.
It's one of. Here's another douchey moment of Jason telling a compliment that I've been told.
Resume.
But it is really nice that on almost every at the conclusion of every production. It's really nice when, you know, someone I haven't met before always comes up, and like it happens time and time again. They say, I just wanted you to know this is the best on-set experience I've ever had. I'm like, oh,
I believe it.
No worries. I had fun today. And they're like, no, Jason.
Like, seriously.
This was really important. And you know, I sometimes, like, you know, I just don't realize the value of that. But it's like, you know, well, it's like, okay, well, then I've done my job right of setting the right atmosphere. So, like, you know, that's another, you know, faking it thing that I figured out very quickly. Yeah. Being on other people's sets is like, you know, I'm not having a good time. I don't want to be here. So it's like, you know, so like, you know, advice to beginning filmmakers, you know, don't worry too much about what you don't know.
Yeah.
And be appreciative. You know, like I usually, before I say cut, I say, thank you. Cut.
All the time.
Yeah, because, you know, you have to show your appreciation because people are putting themselves out there, you know, so your P's and Q's are very important. And also your enthusiasm is important because that's, you know, I mean, that enthusiasm, it isn't just for cast and crew. It's like, you know, it's like when, you know, you want to film at a coffee shop, let's say, and you go in cold to the coffee shop and you're like, I got this thing, and you tell them all about this. And then it's like by the end of the conversation, they're like, when can you come and film in my place? Like,
they're pumped about it.
Because they're pumped about it and they realize the value and the enthusiasm, you know, so enthusiasm is everything. And you know, kind of in a way, everything I'm saying is positive attitude. And even that can be faked. You know,
that's true.
Sometimes you need
Sometimes
to,
you just need to push it. And
there are
not
days.
Feel like it.
Yeah.
But
no, I remember there was a period of time, and I still do it actually. You know, like whenever someone says, "Hey, how you doing?" I would always answer, "Excellent." Even if it was a lie,
right? I
would answer excellent, and then if you could just, like, you know, and sometimes they would become true,
right?
You know, if you say it enough in a day. Okay. But you know, if you know, I think that positive attitude, like, you know, you're going to work with the right people, you're going to, you know,
draw them to you,
hopefully change the industry.
Yeah, so it's a priceless thing.
We'll see.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and chatting. It's the best. Also, can you let us know where everybody can find everything Out With Dad?
The simplest thing would be to go to outwithdad.com. It's all there.
All there, outwithdad.com, and you can find everything you need to know.
Thank you, and cut.
Thank you, and cut. I'd like to thank Jason Lever for opening up and sharing everything that he had to say about being a trailblazer and just going for it. Again, you can find anything and everything Out With Dad at www.outwithdad.com. Check the series out there, and a new episode is released every month. Go become a patron. You can find everything you need to know about Faking It on our website at www.fakingitpodcast.com. Listen on iTunes or SoundCloud, subscribe, share, and stay loyal. Until next time.